see. I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Inger Clark. I'm with Family Network. I am one of the program coordinators. I have with me today Christina. You can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm here, the assistant program coordinator. I'm always glad to work with Inger. I'm bilingual, I speak Spanish, and I love to help families. So if something you want to reach out to Inger, you can also reach out to me. I'll put my email and Inger's as well in the chat. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we have with us today Brian Smith. Brian, you can introduce yourself. He has so many wonderful things and he can teach us so much about this planning. But again, we do always have to tell you guys, we do have some extra things that also goes along with this project. And that is one of the working with Brian for financial planning. We also have some small groups. We also have one more slot for families if they are interested in working with what is it, Christina? I always mess it up.
It's Texas Parent to Parent.
And they will help you work on a network, personal network. And what that is just getting people to support you, where it be family, friends, neighbors, some of the caregivers are even willing to come into the network. So if you want to know more about that, certainly reach out to me. And it's a free service. You have 3 meetings with her and you start to plan it. You can do it virtually. And I'm not sure if they're doing it in person anymore, but I know for sure they're doing it right now virtually. And you just meet with her, you plan out this, and then you go and execute it and get your families involved. So if you're interested in that, give me an email. And okay, Brian, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Awesome. So today, what we're going to talk about is residential options, what to think about, what are some conversations to have. I'm a special care planner with Mass Mutual Greater Houston Special Care Planning Team. And so what we do is the financial side of life care planning for loved ones with special needs. This is just one aspect of the planning process. There's a lot of different things to consider when thinking of the future and what it holds for caring for and planning for someone with special needs. Today, when we talk about independent living and the residential options, funding options, financial considerations, government benefits, there's going to be a lot. And so I don't expect you to memorize today's presentation. Ask questions freely as they come up. That's kind of what today's for is I prefer dialogue versus me just kind of talking to a presentation. Feel free to reach out for questions, like more complicated questions on the back end. Because we only have about 44 minutes. And I know where we're going to get bogged down is when we start talking about how to create your own organization when it comes to residential home, like through a business. So I know that's going to probably be a little bundle right there. If it gets too complicated, don't be surprised if I just say, hey, can we just take this offline and answer those questions later? I want to make sure we get through today's workshop. There is a survey at the end. So if you do want these slides, you have to fill out the survey. If you don't fill out the survey, you don't get the slides. So that's kind of the trade-off there. So please fill out the slide for us. That definitely will help us continue to educate families on an ongoing process. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this. Can you allow me, Inger, to share?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
I only have 2 rules. My first rule is there's no such thing as a stupid question. So ask me anything on the forefront of your mind. It doesn't matter if you Googled it, you've been told it by family and friends, someone else, ask any question. And the second thing is there's no question that's off limits. So if you ask me personally what we're doing with my younger brother, with my mom and my youngest brother taking care of James, or just professional questions, that's fine too. Want to make sure that there's just full transparency and dialogue for today. Awesome. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So let me see if it works. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Are you seeing the presenter side or just the slides itself?
Just the slides.
The slide.
The slides.
I don't know. It's just weird with 3 different screens. So we're going to talk about what are the first steps for planning for someone with special needs in terms of residential options for their future. things to think about and conversations to start having with family members, which to me, this is the biggest takeaway. Understand, learn, and be educated a little bit of what's out there. What are things to consider? Take it back to your family and have the conversations. There is absolutely no reason for you to start thinking about homes or ways of structuring a home without having the conversation with the next in line of, can this be an option for you? Are you willing to step in? Are you able to step in? Do you understand how things are going to flow? We cannot put the horse in front of the carriage when thinking about residential homes. This is going to be an ongoing process. You will not complete this planning process by the end of this year. This is a very fluid situation because your young adult is aging. Their needs are going to change. Their abilities are going to change. Their communication is going to change. We've got to build it in flexibility, but this is meant to start that conversation and start those wheels turning today. So that to me is what I would say. If you can focus on that as a takeaway, then you're going to be better off than you were an hour ago. We'll go over the federal law and benefits both nationally and local from a state perspective of what's out there and things to consider when deciding on different options for your loved one. Financial planning things to consider. Person-centered planning. So again, we're only talking today because all of us on this call have a passion for or have a loved one with special needs. If it wasn't for them, there's no reason for us to be talking or meeting today. So we always have to consider that, and when we plan for them, the person-centered planning is a concept of making sure that they're at the forefront of every decision. Is it for their best interest? Does it make sense for them? We'll talk about different housing programs to consider and then planning strategies at the end. And again, chat box is the best way for questions. Ingrid, do you want to talk about this?
Yes, this is just a form. I'm gonna go over it really quickly, but if you want to know more about this and you want to have an opportunity to work with us, this is part of one of the forms we use during our small group when we all get together, and just about planning, because you want to talk about that person, that the center person, which is the person with a disability. You want to plan out their future. So this is a great opportunity to actually document what's going to be the action, and then at the end, what's the desired outcome, because what we are, when we plan for the future, we talk about what is important for them and to them. And so in doing that, we get them involved in documenting every want and need for the future so they can be successful. So if you're interested in this form, and I have other forms that will help you to kind of document, and you can keep it in a binder and use it. Anybody that walks in is able to plan and know what the plan is by using those documents. So if you're interested, let me know.
So lifelong planning. So let's talk about how can we help our loved ones live independently, semi-independently, or like in my brother's case, he's never going to live independent or semi-independent. He's going to be 100% dependent on someone else financially, medically, on a 24/7, 365 basis. But how can we get it to the point from a planning process, no matter the person that we're planning for, so that they are not a burden of responsibility on the next in line? What can we do and think about, get things set up financially and legally, have options, and communicate that with the next in line so that the lifestyle and the quality of life of this person we're planning for does not change because mom and dad are in the situation. So looking at some alternatives to the traditional provider-based group homes. So it's not just all about group homes. There is a lot of different options. It's not just about state-ran facilities, which if you're involved in the community, we don't like recommending state-ran facilities, but looking at different organizations that are coming on board. Texas is a huge vacuum when it comes to what's available from a residential perspective. And so there's a lot of opportunity that's constantly changing. New things are coming on. Did my screen stop sharing?
Yes. Uh-oh, did it stop? Okay, let me.
I don't see your presentation, Brian.
Off, but
Oh, no. Okay, let me see if I can put you back. No,
I think it just went out.
It just went out.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, let me go back and see if I can put it back in. Yeah, it says remove a pin. Oh. Nope.
I don't know what.
I don't know what happened because I can see you, but I can't see your, yeah, I can't see your, oh my goodness, I apologize, guys. You know, technology is not always, yeah. Christine, are you a co-host? Maybe you can do it?
What if you
Uh,
you could just pull up the slide deck on your end and share your screen?
Okay, okay.
So
Make co-host, yes. Okay.
Did
You're
you
not the
make him
host, Inger?
here we go. We got it back.
Yes, you got it. Okay.
See it again?
Yeah, no, I don't think I was the host anymore. For some reason, it knocked me out too.
Okay. So and the conversation needs to start now, right? So waiting until the end, waiting until you're up in age and then trying to find a solution is not a very solid solution or plain concept or tactic. Having those conversations now and allowing it to be flexible is the most important thing. So it's like I said, it's never too early to begin, right? It doesn't matter how young or how old your adult is. It's always good to have some type of plan in place because we don't eventually know what happens to us. You know, the past couple of years, we've lost a lot of clients, and it wasn't, you know, planned. It wasn't like they were up in age. It wasn't like they were, you know, fighting some lifelong sickness or disease. It was pretty sudden. So at least we have some type of plan and idea in place. For me, when we talk about transition planning and we talk about residential planning, one of the concepts that is tough for parents to understand at times, but as a sibling, I think it's extremely important, is to start that transition earlier than you think. So do not wait until you pass away for your young adults to go live in that residential home or facility or group home or their own private apartment, whatever that situation is. Do not wait to the end, because as their primary caretaker for 30, 40, 50 years, their biggest advocate, you know your baby better than anyone. You'll know if we start that transition and we move them to that facility or home or whatever, if something's off, if they don't like it, if socially they're not happy, you'll be able to tell that, pull them back home, and we find another option. Whereas if you wait till you pass away, your next in line is going to have that final say, and they might not notice something's off or something's wrong or it's not the perfect spot. So I always say when parents go into retirement, after a few years in retirement, we should start that transition. Enjoy those years, travel, relax now that you're not working, but do not wait till your late 70s, your early 80s to finally transition. The earlier, the better. Sometimes some of the kids that we're planning for, young adults we're planning for, they want their social life. They want to be a grown-up and independent. So starting that in their 20s is okay as well. You do not have to wait till they're older. There's plenty of homes that have kids and young adults that are in, you know, 18, 19, 21, 22 years old. It's just about finding that perfect balance and that perfect system there. Again, the second to bottom, and I've already said it multiple times, but be flexible. Right? We've got to build that flexibility from a financial standpoint as well. We've got to build that flexibility. Right? We might as well overshoot and over assume expenses when planning than undershoot or under assume expenses. And then, you know, if we plan for $2,000 or $3,000 a month in financial support from a special needs trust, and we wake up and it's really $5,000 or $6,000, that trust is going to run out of money, and that's going to be an issue too. So we always kind of inflate the numbers just a little bit, just to give us some wiggle room, to give us that flexibility, so we have the ability to choose one home over the other, and we're not pivoted or pigeonholed into one. So where to start? So we have a map. I've got to find it because quite frankly, I lost it in my email, but we have a residential map we created about 1.5 years ago that shows all the residential homes and facilities in Texas that we know about. And it kind of does it's an interactive map. So it does a really good job of breaking down, hey, this home accepts Medicaid funding, this home's private pay, whatever. So I can get that out, but get a feel for what's available. You know, who do they serve best? What's kind of the age of the population there? You don't want to put your 23-year-old with an average population age of 40, because there's going to be some differences. They're not going to be in the same situation. So having a good flexibility of what's around there is big. Guardianship should be discussed if it hasn't already been discussed by the time they transition to this facility or home or situation. But guardianship's a big one. You should be having that conversation at 18, and that obviously is going to make an impact on what type of situation residentially they look at. Meet with an attorney to understand the impacts of them living on their home, living in a home. What does that do to benefits? Does that impact benefits? Does it have no say in the benefits? That's important, often overlooked step there as well. And we have to revisit things, right? Just because we transition, your young adults loving it, we do have to revisit this on an annual basis to make sure that we're okay, rerunning the financial side of things, make sure we can afford it for their life expectancy, making sure that it's a good situation and the costs don't go up. You know, a lot of the residential homes that we've worked with since COVID, they've done a really good job of not jacking up the prices because of what COVID did. There was some increases, but it wasn't, you know, inflation was 8% this past year. I don't know a lot of homes that increased 8%. They increased it a little bit, but not a whole lot, which is good. So they are pretty flexible with what we're trying to do. Government benefits overview. I'm going to run through this. We did a workshop on this a few months ago. I think it was towards the end of last year. So I don't want to spend too much time, but the importance of understanding government benefits is this. We are not starting from zero. If you're a young adult with special needs, has a disability that's recognized by Social Security, you do not have $2,000 in their name, we are not starting from zero. And that's important because when we quantify that need, it's not all on you or the trust. And so right now, SSI typically turns on at 18. It can turn on earlier with some exceptions, but at 18, they're considered an adult. And so as long as they don't have a certain amount of income, they don't have over $2,000 in their name specifically, they should be entitled to receive SSI, which in 2022 is $841 a month. That also comes with Medicaid, which is their base health insurance, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So SSI, $841 a month. There's other needs-based benefits as well. So SSI and Medicaid are considered a needs-based benefit. So qualifications and disability, financial qualifications and disability qualifications. This is also available to them if the idea of independent living or semi-independent living is there. Heating assistance, hopefully we don't have a Ice-a-Mageddon or whatever you guys want to call it again. Like last year, that was way too cold for Texas. But if you live in the northern states or move to the northern states, there's heating assistance programs. There's Section 8 housing programs. There's public housing, which I don't think that's really where we want to put our young adults, but there is options there. Food stamps is a big one, right? At the end of the day, it's how can we stretch the dollars that we have amassed for them and the benefits that they receive financially from the government. How can we stretch those dollars for as long as possible? So sometimes it's food stamps, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's Section 8 housing, sometimes it's not. We have to look at everything and say, should we look at this in the future or not? If not, that's okay, we'll move on. And then of course, Medicaid. Entitlement benefits. This is different than needs-based benefits. Entitlement benefits would be SSDI, which stands for Social Security Disability Insurance, and then RSDI, which stands for Retirement Survivors Disability Insurance. These are benefits they're entitled to if their disability happened prior to the age of 22 and they do not earn more than $1,350. They are entitled to receive these benefits. First things first, SSDI. Every single person on this call that pays Social Security taxes is entitled to receive SSDI if you become disabled, given that you do not earn more than $1,350. That same rule applies to our young adults that have worked, maybe in their 20s, and then something happens and they can't work anymore. There are examples where young adults with special needs will be able to work and then claim SSDI. $1,350 per month. That is correct. So that's earned and unearned income zone. So there are ways of getting below that threshold when they earn a little bit more, but that's for another day. If you have a working adult that earns slightly above that, reach out to me and we'll talk about some strategies to get that monthly income below $1,350. And so what happens here is SSDI is their own benefit, RSDI, different benefits, still entitlement benefit, is up to 50% of mom or dad's Social Security amount when mom or dad retire. So if your mom, and let's just say mom's getting $2,800, your young adult can get up to $1,400 a month. Again, that's almost double what SSI provides. The day mom passes away, it goes from 50% to 75%. So in $2,800, instead of it being $1,400, now we have $2,100 a month. So when I like using Brookwood because it's round numbers, $5,000 a month to go to Brookwood through private pay. Well, now we only have to make up $2,900 a month, not $5,000, because there's an RSDI benefit there. So that's something to think about as well, is these benefits can pay for rent, can pay for food, for clothing, all this fun stuff. It's not all going to be on the special needs trust. Medicaid. Medicaid comes with SSI. It's a needs-based benefit. Medicaid is king. And it kind of says it there, most important. When we talked about long-term planning for someone with supplemental needs or special needs that cannot provide for their own, I'm talking $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. If we're only earning $1,000, $1,500 a month, that's not providing for themselves long-term, because what we're going to talk about on top of that is what happens if they go to a nursing home. Right? Our young adults are going to age. They are going to have health problems in the future too. Medicare only provides for 120 days in a nursing home. So if they live longer than 120 days in a nursing home, who's going to pay that bill? That's why Medicaid's important. Not only does it pay for nursing home long-term, it pays for additional support programs when they're younger. And, which we're going to talk about, in Texas, there's a waiver called HCS, Home Community Services Waiver, that correlates with other funding for residential homes here in Texas that will pay for some group homes or residential facilities if they accept Medicaid funding. So that's something to consider as well. I'm going to skip this slide. We're going to get to the fun part. So home community-based services. This is a national mandate that all the states have to have some type of home community-based service waiver programs. In Texas, we call it HCS. HCS's waiting list is a very long waiting list. We're talking 15 to 20 years. If you haven't put your child on that waiting list, I highly recommend that you do that. Reach out to Inger. Myself will give you the information to contact your agency or local agency to put them on the list. This is a national workshop. So the 4th bullet point, apply early as age 18, 20. Do not wait till 18 or 21. As soon as you get a diagnosis, throw them on that list. Other states, sometimes there's requirements where they have to wait till certain ages. In Texas, put them on early. The earlier, the better. So this is the second to last, stretches dollars previously spent on ICF funding. So this is a perfect example of like Avondale House here in Houston. Right? An example would be Avondale House accepts Medicaid funding. It's not private funding. So if you have a child who's lucky enough to get a bed at Avondale House, you go in there, you forfeit HCS after, I think it's 270 days, but then ICF kicks in and pays for it. So you don't have to pay for it through your special needs trust. It's covered. But most Medicaid Medicaid funded facilities or homes have a very long waiting list as well, because a lot of families want their kids to live there because it's less expensive than having private pay. So that's something to consider as well, is if you do want them to go to a Medicaid funded home or something that accepts HCS, we need to put them on the list, and you might have to transition them earlier than you planned on it, because there is such a long waiting list for these facilities because they are so backed up. Any questions so far on benefits? I ran through that because I don't want to spend a lot of time, but if you have specific questions, please ask them. Okay. I'll move it along. So let's talk about what's out there in terms of economic and political climate. First things first is when you talk about base Medicaid and SSI, that is a nationally mandated program to individual states. So every state has to offer bare minimum, what's nationally mandated. And then everything on top of that is icing on the cake that the state, puts in there. For example, California has enhancements. So you're getting 841, you're getting close to $1,000 a month in SSI. A lot of their housing facilities out there in California are paid by the state. Here in Texas, we're not that fortunate. Every state's completely different. And so I'm going to talk specifically about Texas. One of the questions we ask when we talk about planning is, do you have plans to move to other states? Because that changes things completely. So there are talks of, first things first is our list have been frozen since like 2005, I think 2006. There's been no additional funding to adult services. That's why the waiting lists are so freaking long. I think, are we still on, you guys know, are we still on like year 2008 or 2009 in terms of the waivers list? We still in the single digits in 2000s? I don't even think we're in the teens yet. Is that right, Christina? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
You mean the wait or
the waiting list?
Yeah, like.
Oh yeah, 14 at least. Yes.
Yeah. So there's talks about putting caps on Medicaid funding at the state level. There's, when we talk about Social Security benefits, so SSDI, RSDI, and Medicare, those three benefits only. Anytime you hear stuff in the news about the Social Security fund being at jeopardy, those benefits are at jeopardy. That is a taxpayer funded benefit. SSI and Medicaid is not funded by Social Security, so do not worry about that. But when we talk about Medicare and RSDI benefits, the bigger financial benefits, they are at jeopardy of being lessened or taken away completely. The other thing that's starting to come into the world is our birth rate in the United States has been below the 2.2 birthing average that we need per family since like the 1980s. What that means is we have a very aging population of baby boomers, and we don't have the people to replace those baby boomers in the workforce. Therefore, that's putting additional stress on public and local funded programs because of taxes not being collected. So yes, there's a lot of things that can impact this plan. That's why if we start early and build it to be flexible, as things change from a national government or a state government level, we can make those quick and easy changes into the plan. But do know what we plan for today, 9 times out of 10 is going to be completely different in 20 plus years from now. It's just the way things are. Things change, governments change, taxes change, payouts change. It is what it is. So how do we take it into our own hands and provide financially without relying 100% on state and national support programs? And that's through financial planning for yourself to make sure that you leave behind a legacy in the most efficient manner to support your loved one with special needs by using a special needs trust. And so special needs trusts are ways for us to leave tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, $1 million+ to an individual to receive benefits and not disqualify them for SSI, for Medicaid, for RSDI, for Medicare. Special needs trusts are created by elder law attorneys. So if you were on, I think everyone was on earlier. Oh, we have a bunch of chat questions. Let me see that. Yep, that doesn't surprise me. It's a very, very, very long waiting list. It's sad, quite frankly. I wish it was a little bit easier for our young ones to get it. So special needs trusts, though, are created by attorneys. Boyd Hanley would be the attorney that you would communicate with. He's very, very good, very, very intelligent, and has low cost compared to other attorneys in Houston to create your special needs trust for your loved one with special needs. Again, this is where all your money would flow to for their long-term planning. Another really, really awesome, beautiful instrument to use to provide support for your loved one with special needs is the ABLE account. The ABLE account was enacted in 2014. This is essentially, think of a bank account on steroids, an investment account on steroids, for us to set aside annual dollars of $16,000 a year into an ABLE account to pay for housing and food and clothing and other qualified disability expenses. Very, very flexible, very, very nice. if you go through the planning process with us, you might open one, you might not, but I guarantee you throughout, if we look at your timeline of your young adult with special needs, your child will have both a special needs trust and an ABLE account at some point in their life forever. Because special needs trust and ABLE account, between those two instruments, the money you leave behind, we can pay for every single expense that ever comes across your child's desk through the ABLE account or through the special needs trust. We can move money, not between the two, but we can move money from the special needs trust to the ABLE account, and that will allow us to cover all expenses because special needs trust can't cover every expense. ABLE accounts typically can't because we can justify it as a qualified disability expense. The one thing that we want to also discuss as well is we don't really want more than $100,000 in an ABLE account because as the rules state today, if there's over $100,000 in the ABLE account, which is, I think on this slide, second to last bullet point here, SSI gets turned off. So we don't want to use the ABLE account as a savings account. This is not really where we're meant to save. ABLE accounts are meant as checking accounts. You pay your utilities bill, you pay your rent bill, your mortgage bill through your checking account. You don't dip into your savings account for all those expenses. Investments really are meant to be in the special needs trust. Long-term planning is really supposed to be done in the special needs trust. ABLE account is supposed to be meant to receive money and immediately send it out to the appropriate providers. Zelma, are funds in the ABLE account counts? No. Funds in the ABLE account are not counted towards qualification or means tested benefits. Unless it goes above $100,000, then SSI gets shut off, but not Medicaid. So again, SSI is turned off, but not Medicaid if the ABLE account gets above 100,000. What I will tell you is there's not one ABLE account right now in the United States above $100,000. The average account size of an ABLE account right now is about $8,600. The largest one I've seen is about $92,000, and we immediately moved to cash, so we didn't get any more growth from that money. So, is there a certain age when ABLE accounts can be used? So this is something that's actually just changed 2 weeks ago, Melanie. So before, the disability had to happen prior to the age of 26 for someone to be eligible for an ABLE account. So let's just assume, your child's born with autism, right? You're obviously born with that, but they don't open the account until they're 45. No problem. The disability occurred prior to the age of 26. Now they're changing the legislation. This is going to be very fluid because this is something that a lot of the advocates and lobbyists are trying to change to make it more useful for us. Now they're moving that from 26 to 46. So if the disability occurred prior to the age of 46, and this is brand new as of a week and a half ago, they can open the ABLE account. So if someone gets in an accident after the age of 46 right now, they cannot use an ABLE account. Prior to a week and a half ago, if someone got in a car accident when they're 32 years old, they cannot use an ABLE account. So they're going to push back that age requirement for the disability to happen. But you can open the ABLE account when your child's 2 years old if they have a diagnosis. No problem. No problem. I love ABLE accounts. I think they're amazing. But there is one nasty little thing about it. Medicaid payback provisions. So whatever money's left in the ABLE account the day your child passes away in the future, the state Medicaid gets to be reimbursed for expenses spent on your child up to the amount of those expenses when that account was opened. There is no Medicaid payback provision on third-party special needs trusts. So again, going back to that concept, all the long-term investments, all the hundreds of thousands of dollars, everything meant for the future is in that special needs trust. We just move day-to-day expenses over to the ABLE account. The ABLE account has a Medicaid payback, the trust does not. So that's why, again, we also leave hundreds of thousands of dollars in the trust because there is no Medicaid payback provision on third-party supplemental needs trusts. Any questions on the ABLE account? Trying to run through this. I know we only have about 13 minutes left. So the next thing is, again, working with us, we'll explain. Matter of fact, I'll kind of see if I've got No, I don't. I was going to kind of show you kind of like a map of what we usually walk through clients and expenses and show money go to the special needs trust, because your child's going to have 3 buckets. They're going to have a bank account on which they receive their government benefits from. They're going to have a supplemental needs trust, which is where you're going to leave all your life insurance, all your 401ks, IRAs, home, all that fun stuff too. Then they're going to have an ABLE account, which is what's going to be funded by the special needs trust. And so we walk through expenses pulling from this account versus that account, expenses pulling from this account versus that account. So we'll walk through that with you as a client, but we maximize everything available to us. So again, most efficient, tax efficient way of paying expenses, and every single expense is paid for by one of those buckets. And yes, please fill out the survey. The survey is very, 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 very important. So understanding government benefits, understanding ways of leaving money behind, let's start thinking of what options are out there. So we need to start asking our questions that are on this list. You need to start having that conversation with your spouse, with the next in line caretaker. You need to figure out where that next in line caretaker is going to live, right? If they're going to be making a lot of the decisions, medical decisions, care decisions, and they live in California and your child lives in Idaho, they ain't very good. So we need to figure out where they're going to live, finding suitable placements in the state or local area of where that next in line caretaker is going to live, because we don't want travel costs put on the special needs trust. And we definitely don't want the caretaker just to go along with whatever the home says or the providers say, right? We need boots on the ground. We need family members involved. We need to make sure that we're always considering the child's best interest. So take a screenshot of this page. These are really good questions to kind of walk through and talk through. And until you discuss these questions and have answers with these questions, there is no reason for you to take tours of residential homes, to decide if you're going to, put them in a, private home. There's no reason. There's no reason. You need to know what you're planning for. You need to know the answers to these questions to ask those homes, hey, do you provide bus stops for our young adults that can work? Do you provide transportation to grocery stores for our kids that can cook for themselves? Do you provide visiting hours every day of the week for family members that come in and visit their loved ones, especially? You need to know these things so that you know what to ask for when you take the tour.
And if I may add a little bit to that, Brian, precisely the person-centered planning program that we have at Family to Family Network will let you use and show you how to use a lot of tools so you can initiate these conversations with your family member with a disability, and also other family members, even friends that love to be with your family, and that you can reach out to so they can assist you in planning for the future and the best life of your family member with disability. So join a small group, email us, or look for it on the website. Thank you.
Exactly. I mean, please get with the small group, family network. It's so impactful to hear from other people and other families, just bounce ideas off of each other, because I promise you, you're not the only one that's gone through it. There are other families that are going through it, and there's nothing more impactful to help families that are about to go through it for you to give advice to and kind of walk through and bounce ideas off of. So going back to this, the reason why you have to go through that, the reason why small groups are important to understand the person-centered planning, is because there is a huge range of residential options. Huge range of residential options. You can do independent living, which is kind of what we do, right? That's how we live. We don't, typically rely on our parents anymore. You have a family home. So this is, kind of what we're doing. So what my mom and I have discussed, along with my wife, is that when my mom gets up in age to where she can't care for a grown man that has to have his diapers changed and move physically from his bed to his wheelchair, is have a mother-in-law suite. And that's James's house. So I have my house with my family, with my wife. My mom and James will be in the backyard with their little, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom setup in the back. But family home is what we decided. We don't trust what's out there for my brother. He's too fragile, needs medications 8 times a day. Like we prefer to keep it at home. Every family is different. You do not have to do it the way that we want to. So family homes there, intermittent supports in one home, right? So if they live in an apartment or a home with With roommates, right? That's another way of financially lessening the burden on you, is to spread the cost across 2 or 3 different roommates, but having supports come in during the day, having a caretaker hired to come in. Hey guys, are you brushing your teeth? Did you guys do the dishes the past 3 days? Are you doing your laundry? Right? Someone that just needs a little reminding, a little nudging on top of it, not necessarily something that handholds them, but something that's, hey guys, I know you're independent enough to kind of make, you know, food on your own, but are you taking care of the small details that we had to work on? Shared living or adult foster care. So again, HCS services, having providers, you know, stay in the home 24/7. Again, sharing that cost is huge. And there's more. Let me see what the question is on the chat. At what age should I start
We
playing
need
games
a
with my
program.
systems?
We need.
So Melody, I wouldn't necessarily say you need an able account now. I can confidently say that without looking at your situation, but you need a special needs trust. And so we can talk about what does that mean? What are the powers that you need to think about? The people that are involved you need to think about, but you need a special needs trust, because it doesn't matter whether your son's going to live independent, semi-independent. If right now their current situation is they have special needs and they're going to need support, even at 5, 6, 7 years old, whatever you own, all the assets you own, if they're more than $2,000, and you plan on leaving that behind for your child, then you need to have a special needs trust for your son. I mean, that's just an absolute need when we talk about providing for your loved one. Because if he grows up 25, 30 years from now and he doesn't need that, then guess what? We can just throw away the special needs trust and change our beneficiaries. We don't have to use it once it's created, but it's better to have it than, you know, hit the panic button if something did happen. So other ranges of residential options. Again, I'm a big, if they're capable of doing it, I'm a big roommate kind of guy. Like Daymark Living has roommate situations. Oh my gosh, Project Beacon, which is a new organization started by Kevin Garrity, is going to be similar to this, where they pair individuals with similar disabilities and similar situations as a roommate to help spread that cost of mortgage and utilities and property tax, all that fun stuff. Group residence, which is kind of like a Brookwood mentality, or not really a Marbridge, but kind of a Marbridge, depending on where you're at in their residential homes, right? So a bunch of housemates with a house, you know, family, essentially, a grown up and their family living at home taking care of adults with supplemental needs. All of this is just fantastic ways, outside the box thinking. It's not just, oh crap, got to go to a state ran facility. That's my only option. Oh crap, got to use this Medicaid funded home. No, it's not the only solution. Sometimes it is, depending on financial situation and disability needs, but it's not always, right? And so when we think about homes and we think about, you know, one of the most common themes that we hear is, well, guys, look, I live in a 4-bedroom house. It's fully paid. When I die, you know, where are we going to leave it? My other son or daughter doesn't need it. They've got their own family in their own house. What are we going to do? Well, if we want, we can try to figure out a way to structure it where your child can still stay in that house and have providers come out to them or her. And the way we structure it is through this, right? So we talk about what's the best way from a business standpoint for protection and liability reasons. Is a condominium better, right? We sell the house and we put them in a condo because maintenance is covered by the association dues. All we got to pay for is HOA. It's a lot smaller. Property taxes are a lot less. Sometimes condo, and the other thing is security. There's always someone at the front desk, right? We don't have to worry about people knocking on doors and kind of being fearful of, you know, are they the nice neighbors selling Girl Scout cookies, or are they looking as, you know, to take advantage of the individual living there? So that's a really good one. Third-party supplemental needs trust can house a home if they live in it as their primary residence. Joint ownership, so special needs trust and another sibling. So there's just a lot of ways that you can think about structuring it. But it's really important to start with the questions, understand what's there financially you can afford, and then back into these types of things. This is a lot more advanced planning here. So there is a lot of financing programs as well that can help out. So one of the things, and this is a business model that people do for their own personal business, but this is also a model that you can use to purchase a home for cheap, is find foreclosed homes. That makes sense. Find something that's a discounted home to buy and put into a C Corp or an S Corp and throw it into the trust or something. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have mortgage loans to individuals with disabilities. The one thing that we run across as the biggest issue is when a home is owned by a trust, sometimes a lot of the banks have a problem with that mortgage to a trust. Right? Who's going to back it? How is it going to be paid? So there are some things that we have to consider there. Again, Section 8 housing, there it is again, right? So there's a lot of support programs there as well. Okay, Zelma, thank you please take, if you want the slides, take the survey before you leave. And if you want to start planning and get kind of a foundation started, reach out to Inger. She'll reach out to us and schedule it. Thank you so much, Zelma, for hopping on.
Thanks.
And then let's keep on going, because I know we're running up to 1 o'clock.
Yes.
Let's see. So again, more questions to consider. Number of occupants, right? If we have social anxiety, if we have behavioral issues, it's probably not smart to throw that individual in a home with 8 or 9, 10 other people, right? That's just a liability issue alone. How many staff need to happen? Do we need one-on-one, or can one individual living at that home help 2 or 3 or 4 people at the same time, because they're not 24/7 type need like my brother? Investors, aka families, right? If you get together with 3 or 4 families that you've grown up with, and the kids love hanging out together, and you say, hey, look, there's a $500,000 home, but between the 5 of us, that's only $100,000 we need to leave behind. Well, that's a lot more affordable than one family paying $500,000. So again, when you think investors, think families, share that cost. The agreement of the residents too, right? You need to have a contract with those families. Who's going to be liable for helping pay supports? Do you have a special needs trust? Do you have it funded at an adequate level? You can't just say, oh yeah, we'd love to, Bobby's best friends with James. Why don't you come on in, Bobby? And Bobby doesn't have a special needs trust. He didn't apply for benefits. Mom and dad are only leaving him $10,000 because you didn't make it a requirement for them to have everything checked, make sure that they went through all the proper channels for government benefits. Having those agreements is extremely important. And then eventually the succession plan. When James passes away in the future, what happens? Who's going to take over the reins? How does the equity get out of that house? Strategic planning, again, person-centered planning, working with an attorney, working with ourselves, working with a good banker to make sure we can set this up. That's a big one. Project Beacon's doing a fantastic job out there. Again, financial planning is a good one. Summary is a good one, but I don't want to take up too much more time. So we're at 1:01, sped through that like crazy. Again, for the people who are on here, take the survey. You'll get the slides. If you don't take the survey, don't get the slides. Reach out to Inger if you guys want to have any more in-depth conversations. Again, don't jump into this too quickly. Don't force it. Think through it. It's going to be a long process. It's okay not to have the answer today, but to work on it for the answer in 2 or 3 years. Because we don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to, jump to conclusions and really screw things up. Again, for planning purposes, Inger will set you guys up. It's all covered through family to family. Please take advantage of this grant and this opportunity. And then we can also bring Boyd in as well if there's need for legal documents as well. Any big questions right now from any of you three?
Remember, you can reach out to us also, if not right now. Oh, there's
Yes.
a message.
There's a message.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Melody,
It is okay if you meet, if you live in Fort Bend.
he's asking if everything this is okay for her because she lives in Fort Bend.
Yes, I mean this specific workshop is state specific, so anywhere in Texas.
Exactly.
Brian, are you meeting them virtually? Can they meet you virtually? They don't have to come into the office, correct?
Correct. I think I've had 4 in-person meetings since February 2020. I prefer virtual. It allows more flexibility. You don't have to worry about childcare, traffic, any of that stuff.
Mhm.
If you do one person in person, I'm okay with that too. I don't, you know, I've got my shots, we're good to go. So it's whatever the families prefer.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. If you're still interested in that, certainly reach out to me. I did see some in the chat that did, and I will be reaching out to you today before I leave to
Mhm.
get you started and registered for that time to with the care team. So I want to say thank you to Brian. You always do a marvelous job. The information, and you will get that recording. Remember that, but please fill out the survey so we know how we're doing, and we can get some feedback on how we can give you more information if that's what's needed, or how we can assist you in any way. Again, I want to say thank you for participating in our monthly class, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Brian.
Bye
Bye-bye.
all.